Tell me that.
Awesome. It's awesome.
It's awesome. But yeah, like hearing that and thinking that the 5G towers were just the start and that, 6G is possibly really already here and infiltrating us with AI. I'd have to take a look and try to find the article, but it was about reading our minds and it's so if you're talking about that matter of being able to control us, what are we all doing all the time? We're all just stuck to our
On
phones,
our
right?
phone, yeah.
Right? And that's kind of one of the biggest forms of control you can have. So if you have people like you and I that
Yeah.
aren't easily controlled,
Right.
because we see the bigger picture, we are to an extent,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I
but
agree.
if the 5G and the 6G have hit the point to where it's reading our minds. I don't remember how it was, whether it was just with the um, with the waves. I my brain is the
Yeah.
radio frequencies like somehow are
That's
hitting.
what this guy was saying. He was saying that they control us via low radio frequencies, which
Yeah,
would match why all of us are like, get high on the frequency,
yeah,
move yourself up out of that low frequency. The question is, and according to this Dr. Courtney Brown, the way he was describing it, um, they planned on developing a new age movement because they want to pull everyone out of structured religion.
right.
Um, and they want to trick the Christians into believing that a rapture is occurring, however they're going to do it, because they want to diminish the population, they want to put us in 15-minute cities, and they want to further control. I think part of that 15 city movement, like even San Antonio has accepted it and they've started to build. There's like 30 plus countries involved, states involved, um, but they're doing it in a way that's sort of like, you don't have to drive to work, you can walk, and we're going to save the planet. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to only allow so much food per household so that we don't hurt the soil any longer. They plan on getting all the humans down to a 1,200 calorie a day food diet thing. Um, but they're saying that means, oh, and the vegetarian, they want us vegetarian, no more
So
meat,
many thoughts.
so
I'm
we
having.
don't, because apparently the methane gas that comes from the cows is killing the ozone. And I'm not saying all those things are wrong. This is how their control tactics are.
Not just that,
And
but how quickly do those? I mean, and it's
you
happening.
have to
Like,
get written permission in some form to be able to get on the high rail and go visit someone in another city.
yeah,
So it does feel a bit like Nazi Germany. Like you have to check your documents, and so when I and all of this stuff has been going on for past several years now. It's just the culmination of the events, like the election, like now we have the drones. The I think one of the videos I was talking about was like, have you ever seen a large group of people that are just not affected by anything? That we're all like walking robots right now. We have zero emotion towards
hmm
UAPs. We have zero emotion towards political stuff. Nobody is doing this huge. We're all just kind of like, yeah, and
numb to it. Numb to
none
it.
to it. Right.
Yeah.
Also would dictate part of the control, because in the 1970s they started shifting around the marketing with our food and adding sugar, large amounts of sugar to all of our food, all the processed foods. Um, and I think the body, it only processes about 9 grams of sugar a day. Anything beyond those 9 grams gets stuck on you like fat.
hmm
Um, if you're gaining all this weight, yes, you're getting sicker, but you're also getting diminished. You're tired.
Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts. You're saying all these things and I'm having a ton of different thoughts and I just got to throw it in there. So the immediate of what you just said, diminishing, decreasing the body size. That's gotta be easier to penetrate and for all those signals and waves and
Yeah,
frequencies to impact you and, okay, robot mode, you're gonna, go this way and stay blind, right?
yeah,
Stay blind. I'm gonna double back. You went to talking about the 15-minute cities, and you think about got and I just got thrown the Carolinas. So like when those hurricanes happened this
yeah.
year, they were so bad. And how the hell are they going to go that far inland and what, Tennessee up
Wreck it.
in
Yeah,
yeah, and just wreck it out, right? At Lahaina.
yeah.
You want to talk about Hawaii? That was like
I,
horrible,
yeah.
horrible, and now nobody talks about it.
Nobody. Yeah. So fast.
What do you think's probably happening down there right now? Building
Right.
some cities, 15-minute cities. And then you
Right.
talked about the food scarcity, and I'm thinking about uh Uranus has been going through Taurus, right?
Right.
And that has impacted the food. And
Right.
I'm just thinking to myself, you see all these videos, TikToks, whatever, about how people their food's fake, right? Fake
Yeah.
blueberries, fake chicken, fake. I mean, you can
Yeah.
see, like, I think Michael even sent me a video about hams. You make your spiral ham at Christmas or whatever. And really, it's just a ham mold that you would put a cake in, and
Yeah.
it's a fake potted meat. And then all of a sudden it's there. So all the processed food now I'm thinking, okay, well, if there's all this extreme weather and the greenhouse effects, they're saying, and it's causing all this extreme weather to burn out the crops, to
Right.
dry them up, and we're not getting the food. Now we're not wanting to even, we're talking about all these tariffs and shit, right?
Right. The
Which
tariffs.
is gonna make everything even more expensive,
Yeah.
and then you think about the contamination. You talked about, the chemical trails, like what
Yeah.
they're
The
dumping
water.
in our water, the
Yeah.
fluoride plus God knows who whatever else, right? You
Yeah.
think about all this stuff, well, food's growing really freaking weird. Like, I went to the grocery store in the produce section, and all the potatoes were squished and looked like little brioche buns that you would see on a
Yeah.
hamburger. I was like, "What in the F? Why are all these potatoes looking so weird? And the vegetables look all rotten."
Yeah.
And you think about all this stuff and the fact that Kennedy is going to be in the what is it? Not FDA, maybe? What cabinet? I don't know. He's basically going to be in control. He's going to be in control of the foods, and they're already talking about how he's wanting to get all like the dyes out of the food, like the color dyes, because of how it's so, you think about how against the system they are. uh, you can think about that. Now Uranus is about to enter into Gemini,
Yeah.
which is
Department
like,
of Health
boom, let's go.
and Human Services.
Yeah, yeah, and he's
Yeah.
really big into the preservatives being in all the fucking food.
The industrial
So
complex and the drug
right,
companies. Yeah.
right. So it's like a double-edged sword. Okay, so are they in there protecting us or wanting to protect us from
Oh
this kind of
yeah.
stuff, or are they wanting to get us to 100 pounds each so that they can penetrate us better? You know
That's
what I
that's what this
mean? That's
guy, Dr. Courtney Brown, was talking about. How they wanted to get the population to a certain state, and those that joined the New Age movements were the ones they were going to plug into 15-minute cities, because they're under the assumption that the rest are going to be violent and they're going to be harmful, and they're going to take
yeah,
those people that are like us. But part of that is what this guy is explaining, is that the good aliens sat down and sit down, I should say sit down, because there's still it's ongoing research with these guys, and they explained that this is a prison planet. It's a prison planet, and folks that come here are in prison, and they the bad guys, the bad aliens, are the ones that put all of this stuff in place so that we continue down this prison system situation. Now, if you look at the Anunnaki history, if you've ever done that, then you know that originally the Anunnaki came here to mine for gold.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually they brought the Greys with them, and they were the slaves, but they didn't produce as much work and labor. So they upgraded the humans to become a part of the labor force for the slavery thing. But at a certain point, they, like, the leadership had a smash,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy that went one way and broke away was Yahweh. That was his name, Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
Enki, something like that. And he broke away, and I think he went to the Mayans, like went to South America and Central America, and said,
Right.
fine, for you guys, I'm over here. And there has been evidence in Chile and in like Venezuela and Colombia and stuff where they have found um, some of these discoveries. It really gets to me because they're like, oh my God, we found that someone was trying to genetically merge a human with an animal, which was totally against the law. Like, they weren't
Right.
able to do that at all. Um, but the discovery is real. Like, archaeologically, it is real. They found this stuff in caves where it looked like someone was playing Frankenstein with a human and animals and stuff like that. So it really makes me wonder, because on one side you have the Christians that are, looking for Yahweh's return,
Right.
but on the other hand, you have the other leadership who is like, this was totally, like, we have two different sides, and one side they're calling Lucifer, and the other side they're calling Yahweh. And now we have this huge mothership. I sent
Mm-hmm.
everybody the link. The government announced there's a huge mothership moving in our galaxy. Um, the other day, I want to say about a week and a half ago, I saw another article where it was coming up on us. And then yesterday or the day before, NASA shut off all of their satellite pictures, their internet stream that was
Mm-hmm.
showing you what the telescopes were pointed at. They shut them all off. They just shut them all off. We also have had the past 2 months or three, we've had the double moons. Like, oh, look, we have two moons right now. Where the
Mm-hmm.
F did that come from? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're astrologers. We would
Yeah.
know
Right.
that this object is amongst our own home
Right.
objects. Nobody's knowing anything. And now we have a huge planet, supposedly, that is coming towards us, which I think is Nibiru. And that's the whole Enki population, or the whole Anunnaki population. So on the one hand, it's really hard to have faith in believing all this stuff when the disinformation and the shutting down of the telescopes, they're trying very hard not to show us what's
Right.
going on. Like
Right.
today, I found out that President Biden and Kamala Harris, everybody was dispersed from Washington, D.C. Go home to your families, to the holidays, enjoy yourselves, goodbye, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those two had to come back, and they're not telling anyone why.
Right.
They shut down all the cameras. There's no press brief. So what the F is kind of going on? And you and I both knew that the end of December had some special energy thing kind of going on.
Mm-hmm.
We were
Mm-hmm.
asking people, like, keep your eyes on, whatever. And there have been warnings and notifications that everybody's going to be looking up, and that's not where you're supposed to look. You need to look down and look around at what's really happening. So while everybody's eyes are on the skies, there's something going on present,
Mm-hmm.
like locally. Um,
And when you say eyes, don't just say eyes. Eyes.
eyes,
Eyes, okay? Because yeah, you got to realize the technology, how advanced, these other civilizations off the earth
right?
are.
Oh yeah,
And so therefore there is, cloaking, you
like
can't
if we were
see it.
genetically mutated
Yeah.
300,000 years ago, you are damn right they are advanced.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have
And
millions of years ahead of us.
yeah, and you want to think about like and we were and earlier we were talking about ghosts and stuff. That's kind of where we started the conversation, I think, before you started recording. And then you got to think to yourself like you need to be able to pay attention to your intuition. If you're starting to smell a weird smell, if you're starting to
Yeah,
feel weird feelings all of a sudden come up on you and you know that
yeah,
feeling, especially if you've ever had paranormal experiences.
yeah,
I've had plenty, and I know that static, electric,
yeah,
feeling. Like it's
uh,
like a cat crawled up your grave,
yeah.
and it's like,
Doesn't feel right.
and it's not you. Pay attention to the messages that you're hearing.
Yeah,
Get the
it's
feeling of of what you're trying to be drawn to,
there
and
was one video yesterday that was talking about how Revelations in the Bible is all about the chakra system. There were 7 seals that were opened. And once those 7 seals were opened, now you get the 144,000 hertz. So they, in the Bible, there's the 144,000, right? But if you open all 7 chakras, you get the hertz.
okay, I'm
And
just
I'm like,
between
oh,
you and I. You were 2 months ago. Heather, I keep getting green. Heather, I keep getting green.
yes,
I
green,
told you my 2 back-to-back dreams had yellow,
yellow.
and then that night, I had to go buy a yellow cake to put on my pumpkin dump cake I was making for,
Yeah,
a potluck or something, and then, I sent you a picture, like, I pulled up to Walgreens, bright yellow car parked right
regular
next to
card.
me, and I'm like, "Okay, what's the yellow?"
What's
And
the
then
yellow?
I just got the chakras.
Yes, the
So
chakra.
let's look at, the yellow and the green chakras, because I
Yeah,
thought yellow caution, green go for a second,
right.
but yeah.
No, it's strange because even Iris, when we're alone and it's calm and it's quiet in here, which is how I like it. I'm a
Yeah,
librarian in my heart.
yeah.
Um, she has been turning to look at things that are not there. And even last night, I was in contact for the first time, it felt like, with my mother. And I spent 2 hours scribbling last night and like being in a semi state of, channeling,
Mhm.
and was able through the connections that they led me to her chart, to her birth chart.
Hmm.
And I lined it up and it was perfect. And I was like, oh my God. So, on the one hand, I wonder about those that are channeling the alien communications, right? And then
Mhm.
on the other hand, because if you think about what you and I have been doing for
Mhm.
years, it's cleaning up the karma and releasing it so that we can open the 7 seals. And it's not been about going to, because this guy, Dr. Courtney Brown, he's talking about the telepathic communication
Mhm.
and how those that are in the new age stuff, that we're going to be able to start doing that with one another without using words.
Mhm.
Some can already do it. And but the way he's saying is that the aliens want us more like them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you have all of us that are clearing this karma, even with my mother, or who I thought was my mother last night.
Right.
And I go, okay, so there's some people that may be in link and connected to whatever low radio frequency that is that they're pumping through. And
Mhm.
then you have, I mean, because our ancestors are real.
Very much so. Very much
So
so.
is our spirit guides and our ancestors communicating to us a certain type of agenda because they want us out of the prison system? Get us out. Like,
Mhm.
if I can share the screen and show you my mother's chart from last night, and this is what they showed me, which was nuts because I could see the release. Look at all our links. You can tell you and I have been talking a minute. We got all the links up. I'm going to show you the composite chart between me and my mother. Where did I get? I have. It's like mom. There we go. 2030. Let me show you this chart. This is what they showed. No. Is it the composite? Let me get there.
Oh, it's
Because
cool.
maybe it was the progressed.
Progress composite.
Yeah.
While you're looking that up.
Look at
So,
the zoom.
um, well,
It's
you're
me at
you're
the
not you're
slingshot.
not sharing yet, dear.
Oh, hold on.
But when I was talking earlier about paying attention to your surroundings, pay attention also to the people around you. Like if you're like in their eyes, their eyes specifically, if they look dead and unemotional, and they're not normally that way, just pay attention. Maybe time to kind of back off a little bit.
You're not the first person to say that.
There's more people that are susceptible to
Yes.
these unseen forces than others.
Yes.
And we can say the same about the astrology, right? The planet's energies are coming at us all the time. It's how we
Right.
know they're coming. And so, as astrologers, we know how to make it work in our favor or how to calm down our Pepe or whatever you like to say.
Right. Calm down,
Uh,
Pepe.
right. All right. So, anyways, like, yeah, if you see or feel that something's off,
Right.
way off,
Yeah.
pay attention, maybe get out of that area,
Yeah.
go re-divert to do something else.
Right.
If you're under ritual, ask
Yeah.
for protection. You've got the protection, the spiritual protection, don't forget to ask for it. Anyways, sorry, here's your beautiful
No,
chart
no,
with you
you're
and your
right.
mama.
Look at the slingshot. It's the moon, the Taurus moon, and the moon is the fastest object that we observe. So this would be quick.
Oh yeah, that was just a quick
Slingshotting
visit.
over to Neptune in Scorpio with all this communication up here. Like the communication that is revealed, slingshots us as a group. Look at the North Node, family, as a family group
Mhm.
forward. And I'm like, holy crap, because the rest of the chart is really easy, like really flowing energy. It's not like a normal chart where there's so many energies going on all over the place. It's like all stacked up in the social sector.
Yeah, it
And it
is.
means that this Chiron in Aquarius is the behavior, right, for the group. Here's a
Hmm.
whole dang group, and we're going to slingshot like that. So I was sort of sitting with this last night and going, oh my God. Oh my,
That's composite with your mom,
yeah,
and she just dropped in a little visit right there in your IC. Look
she
at
sure
that.
did. She showed up last night, and I was like,
Oh.
but she's the one that sort of said, you're the one that look at the South Node on Mars in Ceres.
It's off the screen again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Because this whole thing just kind of threw me last night for a loop. I was like, Mom? Mom, how do you know about astrology? My
Well,
mom
now,
had a
oh
fifth grade
wow.
education, you
My
know?
mom, my mom knew about astrology. She made sure we knew read the newspaper when we were kids, and only the comics and the obituaries, because unfortunately we've lost a lot of people around us. But the horoscopes. Mom was always into astrologers. She got her natal chart done, and then she'd get her solar charts done on her birthdays, and I got to
Oh,
hear some of her recordings. For those of you that don't know, I lost my mom when I was 14.
yeah.
So, and she never even made it to 40. She unfortunately,
Mhm.
but yeah. So like, astrology's been with me since a very young age, and I grew up in a very haunted house. So I always had a lot of visitors from as a kid. So yeah. What are we looking at now?
Look at the Juno up coming over the midheaven line. Look at the South Node is on Ceres and Mars and Jupiter and Venus. It's all stacked up there in the eighth house 1, 0, 0, 29, 29. It's all stacked up right there on the South Node.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was like, Rutro, what's going
Oh,
on here?
well,
I
you
know.
uh you got me thinking. I'm I'm gonna
My,
have you look up
but the
my
way my
mom's.
mother told me last night was to line up her. Let me show you the natal chart. No, let me show you the synastry chart with mom. She said, "You've got the chart wrong. Line up the Chiron with mom's Chiron with whatever, something I had in my chart." And I was like, oh my God, the Saturns in the upper left, her body, because I was trying to find where the nerve damage was coming from. This Venus or the Mercury I have in Virgo in the 12th house lines up perfectly with her DC. And then,
Well, and I always think of nerve stuff like between Mercury and Aquarius, right?
yes, I was looking at my Mercury, and that's when I kind of got the message. You have Delphine back here with Juno on her south node. I think, is that her south? I think it's backwards from the way I had it last night. Let me flip it.
Backwards.
It's backwards. So we'll put mom up here, because I was like, oh my God. I was, number one, surprised that she came to me like that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually she's very timid when she
Oh,
shows up, but this
that's
time it was like a roar. So
well,
South,
I'm really glad that she got to come in because I've only had like 2 or 3 visits
yes,
from
they're
mom.
very rare with
They are very rare,
the
but
mom.
you know the feeling, yeah.
Look at her south node and my Uranus in Scorpio. It's right on the money.
Mm-hmm.
The Saturn's in Leo. Her
Square, taking that action right down
Uranus,
to square the moon. Oh my
yes.
goodness, or the sun. I'm sorry.
And it was strange because I'm a Pluto and the moon. She's a Pluto and the sun.
Wow,
And I was like, this makes so much sense.
wow.
North node, my Uranus, my north node with her Chiron in Taurus, like the
Hmm.
direction I was supposed to go in. So it fits, but if you sit and you spend time with it and you read this synastry chart, all of it has to do with constructing a certain imprint, because that's where I was last night. I was like, okay, so if Mercury is the eyeball, then which Mercury is it? Is it a Gemini Mercury or is it a Virgo Mercury? Right?
Mm-hmm. There's a difference.
And it led me to an evolutionary astrology process that we talk about when it comes to the first house, because the first house is always squaring the fourth house. The first house squaring means that we're angry with the mother, and this permanent anger issue is carried with us throughout our lifetime. But the imprinting from the mother, you know how we talk about souls selecting their mother because there has to
Mm-hmm.
be a certain imprint. Well, it was making sense to me for the first time. There's an eyeball that is the real you, but we need this mother figure to put some sort of lens, like glasses, in front of our eyes so that we see life a certain way, because we have to enter back where we left off during the reincarnation cycle and the incarnation. So we have to come
Mm-hmm.
back, and you and I talk about these principles like all the time. So I was looking at Gemini energy being the eyeball, and Virgo energy being the completion, and the making that thought in your head, whether it's a factual thought or whether it's an assumption thought. It comes from the Virgo energy. That's the completion of the eyeball data, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it down last night. I know it's weird. Just give me a second.
Now you guys are just seeing us do our weird stuff. We just sit and talk like this, and she's like,
Yeah.
"I'm just gonna start recording." And I'm like, "Fine."
Okay, so I was a very sickly child. I was a very sickly child growing up,
Mhm.
and I'm very, all right. On the good side of it, it doesn't matter what room I'm in. Cancer energy, right? This is the place where you want to decorate your home. The inside of your home is a true reflection of the inside of you. So it
Mhm.
doesn't matter where I've ever been, whether it was an army barracks or whether it was a tent. I am always decorating inside of the home to make it. And we do this with our shadow work. We
Mhm.
trace down all the way to the, we grind down to find the shadow. And
Mhm.
when we do this clearing energy, this is how we clear the karma and the chakras. So I may see a room and go, "Ooh, I'm going to decorate it like this." My eyeball is looking at it, right, through the lens of Libra. But at the same time, I have always been very, what would you say it, susceptible to
Mhm.
getting pink eye. I could get pink eye just immediately. Say pink eye, and I've got it.
I'm that way with poison ivy.
Right. It, but it points to my Mercury. So that's what started leading me down
It's a
this road.
Gemini. Okay.
My Mercury is in Virgo over here in the red, in the
Mhm.
12th house. And I was like, okay, as a child, I remember my mother would have like yellow eyes, you know,
Jaundice
right?
eyes. Yeah.
But she had cancer for many years. She just didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
My eyes turned red, and I have to put drops in my eyes to clear the red. My eyes are dry. My eyes are red. But
Mhm.
but you and I as astrologers, if we spend enough time with the chart, we can find medically what that's attached to. We can.
Mhm.
We'll look
Yeah.
it up, we'll do the research. And my Mercury just happens to be in a trine to the Scorpio energy over here that attaches to her south node. And I'm like, okay, why? Here's the question with a synastry chart regarding your mother. Why did my soul need this particular setup? Why? What was it about my mother that made her the perfect, alignment of energies for me to enter into her womb and be imprinted by her with the Aries to the fourth house, right? First house to the fourth house. And in my chart, it looks like there's a certain intellectual piece of information that had to be passed to me because that's what I was meant to change. And you can see that with her south node in Aries meeting up with my Juno in Delphine, because I was going to take her as an individual and launch forward with her north node.
No, you're on the outside.
I'm on the outside, I'm the red. So I was going to change her Delphine. Her Juno with my south node was going to change. Notice what's up here, Neptune, her Neptune, and Mars. My sun has this. And her suffering that was silent suffering, silent expressions. In the chart, you see how her expressions in Leo, her face, Pluto, conjunct the sun, and it does this trine to Jupiter, which is in my third house, which is my brain.
Mhm.
Her large expressions were going to trine back to this Neptune in Mars that passes off to my internal system. And I've talked about this before with you and some other people. I noticed this with my shadow work several months ago. But as I was meditating, I was like, okay, why am I in a continual state of grief or a continual state of suffering? Why do I get annoyed very easily? Well,
Mhm.
as a sickly child and infant, if I'm screaming, ah, right? My mother had two other small children. When she came into the room, the face she gave me was of one of frustration, one of sadness because I was hurting, right? And the
Mhm.
mother would be like, I gave
But you were
you
getting
this
affection.
expression came with affection.
Yep.
That's the only way that I would get affection.
Mm-hmm.
So that first house to the fourth house, right, is the setup from our mothers. If you're like an
Mm-hmm.
only child and your family really wanted a baby, then the expression would be like, oh, you're so beautiful.
Right.
It would have this instead
Right.
of this. And those expressions given to us by our parents, or the lack of expression given to us by our grandparents or guardians or whoever, is going to
Mm-hmm.
do the setup for the internal feeling that you have inside of your heart space. Is it wrong? Is it right? It doesn't matter. It's what happened,
Yeah.
and you're living it. So to be able to undo that knot, right?
Yeah.
God bless us, and to be able to change the expression on your face. And I think that's why a state of gratitude is the easiest way to get there, because you're only focused on gratitude. And over time, you retrain those rivers where the nerves sit inside of the brain. And you can do that. If your mother dug a really deep trench, training with gratitude 21 plus days, right? It
Yeah.
starts to develop another river, and that nerve will shift over. And they have science for this. And then once it moves over, and all of a sudden I'm smiling all the time, and I'm like, oh, it's really not that bad. It's going to be a great day. And everybody
Yeah.
looks at me like, you're nuts. And I'm like, no, I've been retraining my brain.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are. You're the fact that Saturn's direct in Pisces and it's
Right,
going to be doing its sweep, right? That has us in our deep. That has us in our deep. That has us in a shadow. So it's
right.
been there. It's been going through. It did the retrograde shit. We're still self-sabotaging with our shadow
Yes,
because we're wanting to ignore it because it sucks, right? We don't want to admit it.
right.
And and then you start going forward and you're like, oh, you hit that recognition. Oh
Uh-huh.
shit, did I really just did I really just use that to get some affection from my husband because
Right,
that got my mom's attention when I was a kid? You're like,
right.
oh
And you're like,
damn.
oh my God, I'm going to throw up in my mouth a little.
Yeah, so it's
Uh,
but that's shadow work and that's progress.
it's
you
like
know
two little differences there, and I
I
love that you're pointing it out, because the first one is, I didn't know this. Did you know that dogs will cry before you leave the house? Because it's not really about missing you.
It's a
It's
guilt
that
trip.
if you go away, they're going to feel pain.
Mhm.
They're
I
trying
know.
to avoid the pain. So
Mhm.
they're getting your attention, like, Mom, please don't leave, or I will miss you. Missing you hurts.
Mhm.
So the avoidance, like you said, with
Yeah.
Saturn and Pisces. And then on the other side, there's those of us that can handle pain. And Saturn says, where's your structure with this? And
Yeah.
you and I may fail and slip occasionally, but overall, you and I are pretty good.
Yeah.
Or we wake up in the morning and go, okay, they're throwing things, or they're upset, or and that's in their lane. I'm going to refocus,
Right.
put my light over here to do some sort of good, whether it's making cookies or taking the dog for a walk. It's better than
Then sitting in it.
getting it sucked into somebody else's bad behavior.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is strange. There, look, and that's why I'm like, there are all these readers out there, and I'm not sure if you've noticed this or not. I thought even about making a video, but it would be, I chose not to do it because it would be a little mocking. The readers, they repeat the same words over and over every day. Every day
Yeah.
they will spend hours on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, and they just say the same, they'll pull the card and say the same words every day. And you and I come from a background where we were attracted to places that took us beyond that level,
Right. Right.
where you and I were like, we want to be better people. And the mentors that we have found through these social media sites actually teach us.
Yeah.
So the difference between the two of them, it's almost like I want to put a green sticker over here and a purple sticker over there, and be like, okay, some of you are still in the green. And to me, that's a low radio frequency.
Well, yeah, yeah. You
You
think about
know?
the spouse that you've been with for 50 years and they never have a new freaking story. You're like, can you go get taken or something
Yeah.
and go
Go get a life so
experience
we have
something?
something to talk about, man. Like, go make a
Get,
friend.
get a
But
new story,
get a new
right?
story. Get a new, yeah, because your ex can't come back every day. I'm just going to let you know.
Right? No,
Your ex ain't coming
exactly.
back every day.
Exactly.
And most days, it's not even about anybody else but you, because that's the only world that you live in is you.
Right.
I see what I see, and then I feel what I feel. If I ask you to go with me, now we're together. But even you and I, we have separate experiences.
Yeah.
You're all the way over there, freezing your butt
I
off.
know. It's so freaking cold here in
And I'm
Kansas.
down here driving with the windows down, going, it's such a nice day.
If there's one thing you should know about this girl, I hate more than anything having to wear shoes and socks.
Right?
I love sandals, flip flops. I
Yeah.
so this time of year is definitely not my favorite.
Well, here's
we've
the
got to
other
get
thing.
closer to each other.
And I've wondered about this too. Have you ever, okay, you can go on a Pinterest, and this would be like a really easy find. Um, if just look up Matthew McConaughey's doppelganger.
Hmm.
I think Eddie Murphy has a doppelganger or whatever. There's a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of
from like in
celebrities
history. You mean like in history?
in history, like they
Isn't that
have
shit
the picture
obscene? Yeah,
of
it's
these
awesome.
doppelgangers. And I've wondered often if whoever is in control,
Hmm.
okay, because at this point I'm saying not a she, not a he. I'm saying the it's
That's
out
why I just
there.
said the universe.
If they only have so many faces and bodies
Yeah.
to use, but also if a lot of those features and things that repeated itself
Hmm.
come from the original tribes that humans were in. So I think that thought and go, there's what, 8 billion plus people on the planet right now. We're getting close to
Hmm.
9. If you look at history, there's never been this many people on the planet. So in my head, I go, okay, with reincarnation, these people that died in wars, these
Hmm.
people that were on boats that sunk, how many of the souls on the other side are being injected right now, so that there is max capacity
Hmm.
of souls injected into human form, so that we could do a mass change all at one time.
Hmm. Well,
Am I nuts? Am I nuts for thinking this way? Because
no,
I sit back and I'm like, if I were going to do a big change, I'd want to do it in one sweep.
yeah, no, I don't
With
think,
you?
yeah, I don't think that's too far fetched, you
So
know.
I'm like, okay. And guess what I found? I found one of my freaking doppelgangers
No
the other day.
shit.
It was on TikTok, and I was like, you need to stop.
Oh my
You
gosh,
need
you'll have
to
to forward me that. Forward,
stop.
forward me that.
What?
I've never seen anybody that I look like that I can know of,
That's out
except for
there?
like just my family. I'd say probably one of my aunts. I look very similar to one of my aunts, but I've never seen a doppelganger of myself. So
Like, what
yeah,
goes down must come up.
right.
And why are we repeating with the faces? It's like an
Well,
Amber
yeah,
question. Amber.
but if it's a soul thing,
But
you
if it's a
know,
genetic thing,
see, and that's where I think that we totally reincarnate. So okay, I'm going to say it. Smack me if you want to.
okay.
That was that synastry chart between you and mom.
Yeah.
Uh, there was a Juno South Node conjunction there.
Yeah.
Yeah, which would indicate a possible marriage relationship in the past.
Scorpio. Yeah.
So hence
Yeah.
the, oh, but oh baby, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I just got
Yeah.
smacked with that. But then, you and I have talked about the theory of, you know, the reincarnation thing and wondering about reincarnating into the same family line, the same family member soul
Yes.
groups to work out the karma between them,
Right.
right?
Because
Like,
they do. Michael Newton, Brian Weiss, Dr. Ian Cianson, and more confirm through past life regression work that souls come in at the same time together to do that kind of clearing. The question is, if these are aliens, because no, I got to add one more thing into the bucket before I take my sewing thread and just wrap it up
needle it right back
the
to
way
the
that I
aliens.
do.
I love
Yeah,
us. I love us.
because there are times when I sit with an astrology chart and I see the patterns and stuff, and I question whether this chart is a code for our genetic makeup as individuals.
Yeah,
And I
like
go,
it's
it
stranded
could very
DNA.
easily, because there's 20, okay, it takes, is it 50 watts or 60 watts, 70 watts of energy, kilowatts, to like light a regular light bulb. It takes 20 kilowatts of energy in our brain, because that's what's in there right now is energy. And there have been many spiritual denominations historically that have confirmed that the body we're in is not who we really are. It's the spirit that's plugged into the body. So if a body is transitioning, they have clocked it and weighed it and done all sorts of experiments, these scientists, that prove that there is an amount of energy that leaves the body during that last breath.
Yeah.
Okay, even on my Patreon channel, I've shown you guys that scientists have hit a wall because they don't know what happens beyond that point. The body proves that it shuts down.
Yeah.
We don't know
Yeah.
what happens on the other side and how it goes on. We just have near death experiences that have accumulated and accumulated that show the light.
Right.
So if you are looking at the body from a place of physics and biology, then you know that the brain and the spinal cord, that's where we plug in as humans. The brain is alive. It's
Just
alive.
you, I mean, you see the
And
pictures of
it's
the lungs
right.
with your, with your all of your veins, your
Yes,
blood vessels, your
all of your
neurological
nervous
system
system,
being just like a tree, just
just
like
like
a
a tree.
leaf, just,
You could
it's all
here,
electric. We're just
right?
a
It's
little
all
electric
electric.
meat sacks.
Electric that turns on the meat.
Yeah.
But if you remove the electricity, then the meat just goes like meat does. So it begs this question, and I've thought about it. If the astrology chart is the breaker, you plug in the chart into the breaker box.
Hmm.
And if you remove the breaker, the lights in the room shut off. It's that simple.
Right.
So the question is, that original starting point of electricity that begins in the fetus's brain that turns on the spinal cord for the first time, and now you have a little human in there, that, well, let's just say the possibility of a human,
Yeah.
just depending on circumstances, because sometimes the birthing process is difficult, or the body is not functional in some
Or
way.
there's a pre-existing
But yeah,
commitment that
a
it's not going to end up
pre-existing
happening.
something where it's rejected by both systems,
Exactly.
But it is electricity, doggone it.
Hmm.
And if you put enough electricity together, you're going to have a really big zing.
Hmm.
Where'd that come from? The mom? Did
Mm.
mom's brain shoot an extra little bit of electricity into the kid? Where'd that electricity come from? And is the chart the code for that breaker? Those are my questions that I ponder.
That is a good question. Like as you were sitting there saying that, like I saw Saturn being dad being the modern ruler of Aquarius, the electricity of the people. And then I got shown Uranus, hello new, like
Yes, brand
I
new,
almost saw it like the higher octave of Mercury. Yeah,
right?
maybe
Which is
that could, maybe,
Uranus.
yeah, I suppose it could be feminine, as
Could be.
mom. But yeah, I mean, it's either way, it's source. And if you're wondering about the chart thing, that's why I want to study a little more about human design, because I think that it's incredibly amazing how and I've looked at my human design chart.
Right,
So, yeah, we've looked at it a little bit. You and I both are manifesting generators.
right.
Um, and I think I'm a 2-4, you're a 3-6, or
I'm a 6'3", but
yeah,
even that is a code
yeah,
for
but it's all codes. And I know one
all
other thing
code.
that I was thinking of as you were talking about the numbness, so the feeling of numbness earlier,
Right,
like just kind of blank to any kind of things happening because we're all just numb. We've just
right,
reached that pinnacle. Well, I know that on my human design, I'm the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix. I have Pluto sitting right on my DC.
right,
So it has something to do with that. But I heard we're like about to enter that age on human design. And
right.
that's like the age where people just aren't human anymore.
Yes, I've seen that too, where humans plus machinery, and it,
Yeah.
merging of the two.
So,
But
but if we
like to
lose,
return to like the charts, there's always a repeating pattern.
hmm
You and I can sit with a chart, and there will be, for instance, if you have a Scorpio moon, you may find the fourth house line is in a Scorpio decan.
yeah,
Those types of repeats that
right.
happen in the code.
hmm
And you and I would sit with the person and be like, oh, it's going to be like this and feel like this and look like this. But what we're really describing is the code. Because I looked at this once where I was able to catch repeating patterns in a chart in a certain way to get
hmm
it to zeros and ones.
Yeah.
0011, 0011, 00, which is a computer communication, kind of thing.
It almost looks like that page I sent you from the NSA.gov
Yes.
about the alien encounters. Oh, wow.
Yes. Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy? So
Yeah.
if this is our blueprint and to the code that we are started with,
hmm
upon entry to this prison planet. I don't know. It's kind of pretty here. It's a prison planet.
I
Um,
like Earth School better.
and everybody's like that. And I feel terrible because it feels like we're giving ourselves an excuse to
Right.
feel okay about being here. But I was the first one to come after things and go, why would anybody choose to come down here and face this much suffering and pain?
Right.
A logical mind would say, stay away from that. It's gonna hurt.
Well, yeah, and
No.
it's easier to not feel, and most importantly, and going kind of wiggling a little bit back, if we are so busy being in our phones and
Right.
being numb to this, then we don't
Right.
know we're in prison. And we don't know we don't know that this is all a game. And I guess if you want to talk that we're going all over the place with this, so we're just going to keep going. And the more numb and preoccupied our minds are kept,
Right.
the easier it is to keep people naive, to keep the game going.
Right.
So you tap into that shadow work. You
Right.
tap into all these weird things it just is a possibility.
It
It doesn't mean it has to be fact, fiction, whatever. It's possibilities to just expand your mind. Well, that
right.
lights you up. That
Right.
that raises your vibration, just exploring possibilities, right?
Right. Right.
So, if there's anybody watching, that's what I would ask, just like if there's something you're really just feeling kind of interested in, or something you might feel a little too embarrassed to talk about, look it
Right.
up, do some studies, see if it resonates with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if the collective believes it or not. They're all busy doing this shit, right?
Yeah.
Right?
No,
So
I agree. We're all on our own spin. I was telling the astrology group this week because we were talking about the shift with
yeah.
Pluto going into Aquarius and how it's going to be a whole different dynamic. And for the first time, I'm looking up how to do math on
Oh,
TikTok,
I hate
which is
math.
terrible because I'm terrible at math, but I was also learning Latin.
Oh,
And I was like, I spent 2 hours repeating Latin words.
right.
And I was going, why am I trying to learn Latin?
That is really weird.
Hmm. Things that make you go,
What kind of
hmm.
what kind of things that make you go, hmm, yeah, you're just straight. What happened there?
What happened there? Yes,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
dream work, the things we've been seeing. Because I definitely know that we're not the only ones that have been having dreams, crazy
These
dreams.
dreams are crazy.
They're crazy.
They're crazy, and it's making me, but it's I never remember dreams, and I'm
Crazy.
remembering parts of them, specific ones, like the
Yes,
whole,
with
like we said,
colors
yellow, right, the
and yeah,
colors, and it was a
sounds,
teeth,
repeating.
bones, remember that?
Yes, the teeth
I
and the
woke
bones,
up with
and
a handful of
mouthful.
teeth. I woke up with a handful of teeth as I was waking up,
Yes.
and like
And the same
it was a
night, I
mouthful of
was
bones.
dreaming with bones that were splintered. And guess what? I sat with Amba during the astrology group, and she is a professional with Indigenous groups. I'll leave it there.
Uh-huh.
But she did say that in South Africa, the teeth, chipped teeth and bones were a very large part of their spiritual culture.
Very
But
interesting.
yes, it was very interesting because she
Hmm.
was saying that, and the colors of the teeth that were coming out of my mouth were black, white, yellow. She said those are red. Those are the colors. South African tribes and stuff. The Animet, it's
Anunnaki?
Animet, the Animet,
Animus. Oh.
original indigenous tribes, they believed in an all reigning spirit,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
They also believed that the tree was alive,
Oh, yeah.
and they would talk to the trees, and that they would thank the animals, and everything that had life was under their care,
Mhm.
instead of current day Western world. Everything that's in front of me is an option.
Mhm.
It's like totally different kind of mindsets. But I thought it was strange too. Like your teeth, the chips, bones, and stuff, it all leads back to those original past
And it
lives.
happening at the same time blows my
Yes,
mind, because it really was. It was like, she messaged me that she had a dream about, like she told me the whole dream. I'm not going to go into it, but it was like, before she woke up, she kept getting a mouthful of bones, like splinters, bones coming out of her mouth.
right,
And I'm like, how weird, because in my dream, I like kept accidentally getting hit in the mouth, and I was trying to protect somebody this whole time in my
right.
dream. And I wake up, as I'm waking up, I look down in my hand, and it's a handful of teeth. And then I'm like, tonguing my gum, like what's going on?
Yeah,
And that same night we had the same dream, like
yeah,
about Saturnian. And I mean, that's Saturnian, which is structure.
yes. That
So
was
the
my first thought
breakdown
when
of
I woke
structure.
up. Bone is Saturn.
Yeah.
Bone is Saturn. And
Yeah.
those are the things. Saturn in the chart is a lot like the devil card. It's the one thing that you keep bringing up. It's like you can't get this out of your system.
Mhm.
It's the primary focal point for your pain, the
Mhm.
primary focal, like, you just can't get your eyes off of Capricorn and Saturn. You make it
Mhm.
way more important than it is.
Yeah.
But everybody has a Saturn placement and a Capricorn placement and a 10th house placement. So we're all
Mhm.
running around. That's why I'm saying if there's going to be that great reset,
Mhm.
remember that during
Yeah.
COVID?
Right.
Oh,
We're
the
s
reset. They're going to
we're
hit the
still
button.
we're still waiting.
And I'm like, who's going to hit the button?
Right.
I want
Right.
to know names, places, dates, and
Mm,
time.
Well, now you're going back into the whole
Yeah,
prison thing, right? So,
right. And that's
it
not the first
it
thing.
it
If you track back, like last night I was doing it, the memories that stick with us from childhood and adolescence. It's not like
mhm,
we have Uranus capabilities where we can see all of it, like the Akashic records. We only get a chosen few
it
memories that
comes
make
when we
up.
need to, yeah.
But if you trace those, like I was writing them down, if you trace the memories back, and you kind of make a log of the
Mhm.
memories that your brain has chosen to grip, it'll match your chart.
Hmm,
And
that's
it's sort of
interesting.
like it'll match your Saturn. And it's the repeating patterns. And the memories actually, if you think about it, what was going on as a child, 3 years old, 4 years old, because of the first house to the fourth house imprint from the mother and the family, right?
Mhm,
That imprint has an original starting point that is going on in front of your face right now. Because whatever memory you remember, you're going to put that thing in front of you.
hmm,
So people try to manifest. And that's what I'm saying that happened last night. I was tracking things back to the memories
mhm,
because the memories drive us to look at Saturn. Saturn. We have to look at Saturn. Look at Saturn. My
mhm,
Saturn is the most important Saturn. Get this thing off of my back because it's created all these memories that jam up. So when
mhm,
you see the vision and you have the feeling, you see it in your mind's eye, it goes through the lens and it puts it in front of you. Think about it. Like
mhm,
if you take that right there and I give you homework and you go and you do that thing, you're going to sit back and be like, oh my God, my dad used to do that. And now I'm married to a person that does that.
yeah.
Oh
I'm
my
seeing
God,
you.
I'm still
Yeah,
trying to get my mother to look at me.
right,
Look at me. I'm alive.
right.
Look at my face. Listen to my words. I know that she was using me for another outcome, but in my chart, it was building the imprint of being surrounded by people who can't see me, who can't hear me, who forget that I exist, who can't remember why they're angry with me. It goes
Mhm,
on, but that was the original imprint from my infancy.
yeah. That's all
And
that Libra.
it goes to relationship.
Mhm,
Of course, it's going to be your Saturn. It's the most important thing to you, you know. And we try to find a solution to the Saturn wherever we go. Some people, like you said, they try to avoid it. They try to drink themselves underneath the desk,
oh, yeah,
because that Saturn position is so important to them.
yeah.
But I think it comes from the memories, from the imprint that puts the lens in front of our eyeballs.
Mhm,
And whatever we remember, we put in front of us. So it's a
mhm,
manifestation thing, which is the eyeball, which is why I was doing this thing last night. I was like, holy crap. And then I tested it with the chart and I could see it. I was like, God dang, I'm good.
yeah, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
God
As you're
darn.
talking, I'm seeing a Chartman movement, like directly to what you're saying. I'm sitting
Right,
here watching myself look at my natal chart
right,
with my progressed sun and Saturn and
right,
seeing the ages, like as the progressed sun,
right,
wondering about the time, okay, the timelines that you can retraverse. Like, my mind is so crazy, I'm sorry. Aquarius moon and my
right.
my yeah,
Which
my
is why
Virgo
the good
Virgo
memories,
mind.
like let's say that you have a bunch of good memories in your head.
Yeah,
You're looking back to the good old days, right?
yeah.
And the good old days had some negative facets to it that you didn't
Mhm.
think of at the
Yeah,
time, but it includes that. That's why when we get a divorce or we break up with someone or we separate with someone, the rest of the world is like, don't give up on love just because this happened. Go get a life. That
mhm.
person goes out individually, starts to make new memories with new people,
And learns to
but
love
because they
themselves.
have the old memories, they end up creating
Yeah.
the imprint from the mother, undoing the imprint from the mother and the original family source.
Mhm.
because that's the only way you would technically be free.
Hmm.
Those memories from childhood, like I remember X. And I was writing down my memories, like, holy crap, dude. For instance, in my youngest childhood days, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we lived in a house in Las Vegas, but the backyard was not lush by any means. It was, I was born in the desert
Right.
in Las Vegas,
Right.
in the desert. And when we moved to Florida, I remember thinking as a 10-year-old, God dang it, everything is wet like all the time. Everything is, all the trees, all the
Yeah.
plants are always wet because it's raining. But to be born in the desert, to have dirt all over the place, my brothers were trying to grow potatoes on the side of the house for fun.
Right.
I think my older brother, Brad, was just making good of a bad situation, right? But the dirt from the backyard that would get on my feet and get on my hands, I hated the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
When I turned 11, I met a family that had dirt floors. And I was always hanging out over there and spending the night, but I hated how the dirt got in the bed. And then we got a Belgian Malinois when we lived in Del Rio that brought the dirt from the backyard into the house, and I hated the dirt. Dirt was everywhere.
The
And I was
cycle.
like,
The repeat.
the repeat,
The repeat.
the repeat.
Hmm.
So I don't know if it's reframing the memories. And notice that psychologists have also picked up on this with the eyeball. They use, I think it's EDMR or something,
Right. Right. The
and
fast
they
eye
put all the
movement.
pictures
Mm-hmm.
in front of you and ask you to move your eyeballs back and forth and scan so
Mm-hmm.
that we can retrain the brain about the memory. And I remember how they do it. They put good memories with the bad memory in the middle. She
Right.
made like color pictures that
Mm-hmm.
represented. I think the first time she was like, "What was your happiest memory?" And I said, "The day I gave birth to my son." She goes, "Okay, draw it. Draw a picture." So I'm like drawing the hospital bed, and I'm drawing the balloons and
Right.
my son in my arms, but happy memories, me running in the hills in Korea, and then right in the middle was the negative one, and like back and forth, my eyes going back and forth, like a pendulum swing.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have disciplined ourselves to be able to enter that space of awake sleep, being awake but also asleep. And if you notice when someone's channeling, their eyeballs will move, even mine will
Mm-hmm.
move back and forth like we're asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So that eyeball connection, that's why I was like, okay, which Mercury is it in the chart? Is it the third house or the sixth house? And I think it's the third house because it's in the first quadrant where the siblings are.
Mm-hmm.
The impact from the house. You haven't reached the fourth house yet. You're still in the third. I was even thinking like the first thing your eyeball picks up on when you come out of the womb.
Hmm.
Like your eyeball is grabbing the
Being
pictures
shown all kinds of stuff.
that create the lens. You can change the lens. How strong is a memory? Enough to repeat, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if any of this makes sense. I'm still working on it.
No, it's okay. It's just our how our brains work and how we process stuff, and
Yeah,
it's quite beautiful. I know that you're going to end up posting this for people to see,
sure.
and this is just really a lot of what this journey is. Yes, we're here talking about astrology, but we're also talking about the shadow
Healing,
work,
healing,
healing. We're talking about
healing.
extraterrestrials, we're talking about energy, we're talking about frequencies, we're talking
Possibilities that may not be
possibilities.
impossible,
Right, right.
but we won't know till we get there.
We're sure acting Gemini, aren't we?
And yes, definitely Gemini, but at the same time,
The
I
Virgo
mean,
one.
it feels really great to clear karma. I'm not
It
gonna lie,
does. It does.
for you too,
It does.
where you're like, holy crap, I just processed this and I'm
Yeah.
done with it. Chuck, chuck
Yeah.
out the window.
Right.
Oh, dude, I realized why I was so mad at my mom for so long after she died last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I had to remembering, right, the memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mom made me feel like her and I were in the 1800s, and she's in one of those beautiful dresses, and I'm
Yeah.
in a uniform, and we're the best looking couple on the dance floor.
Wow.
Everybody's looking at us. And I could see my mother's face, with her little hair. And I was like, we were the best together.
I was not wrong with that South Node Juno I saw.
We were the best, me and you had to die.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
reframing it, but like getting, like you said, to the very bottom of that shadow work.
Mhm.
What was really behind it? And I agree with you. The chart helps us to like shim it down and
Yeah,
get all the way to that point, which is why the Juno on the South Node
yeah,
is why I was like, mother of God. Her and I
yeah.
had like a Leo moon together. You're a Leo, like you have Leo
Look at
placement.
me. Oh, I'm a fifth houser. I have a Leo Mercury at 28. Yeah,
I love it.
my son is a 1 degree Virgo in the fifth. Yep.
So
Yeah,
it's sort of like, how would I have gotten there if I didn't see that Juno in the
yeah,
chart?
yeah. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Oh, I know.
It's
I
beautiful because
danced around.
I've had so many revelations because of astrology and being able to look at like my mom's chart and my family's chart, so that I can see how they are and you see why people are the way they are,
Right.
and that helps so much because it's like, yeah, I knew it, I was right,
Yeah.
but they were born like this.
But it
That's just
gives
who.
like an
It's a
example,
validation.
like your mother's first Saturn return. Have you ever looked at it?
No.
Last night I looked at my mother's first Saturn return. That's when I was born. I
Oh.
was the gift on
Hmm.
her first Saturn return. We left Vegas on her first Saturn return. She met the people who built her up spiritually in her 30s, which is what happens when you crash your first Saturn return in your
Right.
30s. Is next, you end up building up to the new. Um, and I was just clocking it and going, holy crap, this was her Saturn square, and
Mhm.
this happened. This was her Saturn opposition, and this happened. And to be able to live in her shoes astrologically,
Yeah.
all of a sudden she was human to me
Yeah.
instead of just mom. And I could see how I impacted her world. But also, I was like, I was the gift. I
I
was
knew I was the
gonna
best
love
sibling.
it.
I knew I was the best.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Because we
That's
have past
funny.
lives that attach to that Saturn stuff.
Yeah, yeah, doing the cha-cha.
I don't know. I love doing this with you. I love
I
it.
lo I love doing it with you. I sent you my mama's birth information. We'll have to take a look at it
Oh,
sometime together. But yeah, I mean, the shadow thing and starting on that. I will tell you that the shadow thing is something that for me, I think we talked about a while back. It was trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma back to
right.
back within like a year and a half period that I wanted answers and I ended up like I think
Yeah.
I YouTube looked on YouTube free psychic readings or whatever, and I ended up finding like tarot readings, and I'm like,
Right.
wait a second, and it's kind of evolved from there, and I started just doing a lot of study about with the individuation, Carl Jung,
Right.
and Alan Watts and all that. And I started trying to retrain my brain because I knew that the common denominator and all the shit that was happening in my
Right.
life was me.
Me. Yeah.
Whether I knew what it was or not, like I
Right.
used to, I could be a pretty cold a-hole,
Right.
because it's easier to detach, when you have gone through a lot of trauma and you've had
Right.
to live a lot of life and stay strong. It's really easy to put on that mask and hey, how you doing?
Oh yeah.
But
Doing great.
and your soul is getting sucked out in the meantime.
Right.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to feel better. And so I started delving into that and it came so naturally. And it was like when I was younger, I will say this, when I was a young adult, I had moved back into my childhood home and I told you it was haunted. It w
Uh-huh.
and my mom had already passed. I was a new adult, and, she started coming through, and I
Right.
thought it was really cool, but then that also started igniting all the other entities that wanted to come around and
Mhm.
tried to start to mess with my head, and I'm
Right.
like, I had to learn to shut but I didn't know how to shut it off or protect myself back then,
Right.
so I just said, "No more. No more." And
Right.
my guardians protected me, right? They left me alone
Right.
until that, that time, 2017, 2018, when it was boom, 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 boom. And I did it myself. And
Right.
some people, they need a little help figuring out how to do it. And I
Right.
found my own way that worked for me. And literally, I will tell you that my guides and ancestors were there with me hardcore.
Right.
They started gradually I started getting yeah, and that's where how do I know between my intuition and just belief or, like a fantasy world, right? Like how do you
Right.
know? Well, you start to feel it in your chakras in certain areas that'll hit you.
Yeah. Your
For me,
throat.
I
Your
for
throat will either lock up or it'll feel released. You'll
yeah.
feel a burning in your chest. Like, say that you fall in love, right? And you're meeting up with your new love. That feeling that shoots up your spine, that's your chakra thing. I mean,
I
it's actually
I was
a thing.
I will tell you that I think I literally, like I said, I've got a tribe on the other side. My
Right.
Venus is right on my IC in Cancer. I
Mm.
have ancestral lineage. I have a champ. I have a whole bar of cheerleaders around me,
Right.
protecting me and helping integrate me into this stuff. They straight threw my ass into a Kundalini awakening.
Yeah. I did see that.
I was having like I started having like internal earthquakes and I'm looking around, I'm like, you don't feel that? And I'm looking for shit shaking.
Tremors. Yeah.
And like, the second I got near like labradite, for example, I got a piece of labradite. I
Right.
put it on my third eye. That buzz went all over my head, straight down my
Yeah.
spine. I got some so blue. I can't even remember what it was. I got this other blue stone. It wasn't lapis lazuli or uh, I can't even remember the name offhand. It doesn't really matter, but I got it, and immediately that's when my guides and angels came in. Like I
Right.
just was able to talk. The communication between that and the labradite, like
Right.
it was fast. And I would say that I started being shown these memories. Like you're talking about memories,
Right.
my guides started showing me things that only I knew, but I had never ever thought about. They showed
Right.
me as a child walking down because I lived in an area that has a castle that's very historic and it has a bridge and I'd walk home. I
Mhm.
started being shown because I was a tomboy as a little girl. I was always out playing. You couldn't keep me
Right.
inside. And they showed me picking up a rock and a stick and putting them in my pockets to
Yes.
take home, that I
Yeah.
started saving rocks since I was a little kid, and they
Right.
were saying, "I was there with you then," and then they
Yes.
showed different times in my life where I never even remembered this memory. They
Right.
just showed me saying, "I was there with you the whole time." So when you start to get these, like, flash memories of things from your childhood or throughout your life that you've never thought about,
Right.
pay attention because it very well
That's
could
what
be
I'm
somebody
saying. If you
else's.
make a log and you write it all down, you'll be like, oh.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
always climbing trees. And
yeah,
I would climb to the tippy top of we had a huge magnolia tree in our front yard. And I would crawl up there and I would stay up there. I'd be up there for hours, hours. I was always climbing trees. I was always in the river, or I was always at the beach in the water, but mostly in the river. And even now, I have adult memories where, like you, I took my shoes off to go fishing
yeah.
barefoot,
Oh, yeah,
barefoot in the dirt, barefoot with
yeah,
feet on the trees, barefoot constantly. And it's like, that's where we feel most natural. That's where we feel safe enough to take the wall down, because that's what
Mhm.
my sponsor would do. He'd
Mhm.
take me fishing. And that's where we would do the hard work, the shadow
Mhm.
work.
Yeah.
And he would ask me important questions, like, how'd that make you feel?
Yeah.
And what do you think had happened to the other person? How would they feel? Even though we don't really know, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but everything is a mirror in our life, especially our
Mhm.
relationships.
Exactly.
So whatever's in front of our face, that's the shadow work that we have to like look at and use as a mirror to kind of
Mhm.
say, all right, this thing makes me angry, or does it bring me rage?
Mhm.
And then you ask why.
Mhm.
And then you go, well, because of this. And my
Mhm.
sponsor would go, yeah, but why? And then you
Why
take another
yeah.
step back and
He
then
was
you
teaching
go,
you how
but
to find
why?
your right, what's behind the trigger.
What's
Yeah.
behind the thing, behind the thing, behind the
So
thing,
that you can
behind the
name that
thing?
bitch. You can name that
As
bitch.
soon as you name it, as soon as you
It
name it, now
loses all
you got the name
power.
of the demon.
Yeah,
As soon as you can
exactly.
name the demon, you can call it out, you can nix it,
Mhm. Yeah.
and go, that's enough of that.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I not only do I not like feeling this way, I don't like feeling like I'm a monster, because I don't believe that I am a monster,
Yeah.
and this makes me a monster. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
100%, 100%. And it has to play into and it does play into retraining your brain. You know,
Yeah,
your typical responses, if there's one response that you keep having,
right.
like the triggers of,
But it can't be
think
done in a state of egoic largeness of like machismo. The
no.
only way it can be done is in a safe place where you can put that to the side and actually get really hard honest with yourself to the point of pain. And hopefully you have someone you trust with you,
Yeah.
because we were always told not to do that sort of thing alone, because we'd only harp on the negative and not remember the positive to be able to pull ourselves up and get up
Yeah.
out of this space,
Yeah.
because you can't just go down and stay there. You'll go into all sorts of mental health issues. You've got to be able to come back up,
You do,
you
you do,
know.
and it is the retraining of your brain and retraining
And
your
like, I
alpha.
have you right now, and you have me right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So
I
we may
wish I
have
was
like a bad afternoon, but then the next day we wake up and we check in. Like, how are you doing this morning?
the moon moved,
Well,
we're good.
we're
The moon moved,
well,
we're good,
we're
and I mean,
okay.
I didn't have anybody during my
Right.
awakening or shadow awakening when I
So it was
had
like
mine.
bam,
And
bam,
so
bam,
but it was also I started noticing that when I did find those things and I named them, they no longer had the same triggering effect. It was
right,
more like a lesson. So a lot of things that you're doing when you're starting your shadow journey, yes, it will go back to your childhood because it'll bring you back to places that you haven't thought of in a really long time,
right,
but you've conditioned yourself to do things a certain way or respond a certain way. But learning how to forgive yourself
right.
for not knowing better in certain situations. So you practice a
Or
lot of
doing the best
compassion.
that you can with what you had at the time,
True, very
because
true.
that's all I had at the time, and that's all I
Right,
had to work with. Those were my resources,
right.
and I
It's
did
also
the best I could.
it
Like,
is
you
also
can't ask more from a human being than their best, and if that
right.
was the best, then let it go. That was the best they could do, you know.
Exactly, exactly,
And
and
to
if
forgive
there's
yourself for that moment.
right, right,
Be like,
and
you know,
a lot of people have parental traumas, and some of them you may not even recognize. You could have had the most loving parents in the world, and either had them taken from you, or
mhm,
they helicoptered you in a way that, um, caused some sort of irreparable damage. Well, it's important to know how to parent yourself. To learn how to parent yourself and love yourself, it gives you a whole new way to to look at life, to move forward, and be open to those experiences. But she's really on point when she's talking about finding somebody that you can trust to
Yeah,
be open with, whether
to
that's
share it with.
whether it's a counselor, whether it's your local astrologer, whether it's it's somebody that could be a good confidant for you. And if
Yeah,
if you're not comfortable with it,
someone that's
do
not
the
going to beat
journaling.
you up any further.
Do
They're
the
going to
journaling
listen, but they're
thing.
not going to punch you in the throat for it. You
Yeah.
know, they're
When
not.
you Right.
Ew! Oh my god!
When you
No.
journal and write down as you go, like her and I,
Right.
notebooks after notebooks after
Yeah.
journals after journals, with just our writing, of what we're dealing
A
with, what
lot.
transits are happening at the time,
Right.
from all that stuff. Shadow journaling
Oh yeah.
during your shadow journey is pretty important,
Yeah.
because you
And
can
a
always
part
look
of
back.
journaling, like if you don't know how to journal, this is just like talking to an invisible somebody that is there.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
It's like you're having a conversation with an invisible friend. And that's how you kind of journal. You just start talking,
Yeah.
writing like you were talking to an invisible person. So it's the same thing for me with the camera. People are like, "How are you so comfortable on camera?" I'm like, I just pretend like I'm talking to a good friend.
Right.
That's it. It's the
Exactly.
same thing in your journaling.
Yeah.
And the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression of
Hmm.
your feelings and what was going on during that time. I'm just like, Heather, man, I will F bomb it up. If I'm on an angry day and that's what's going on that day is I'm
I will
angry,
write in all caps.
dude, I will be like, F that, F and,
Right.
and guess
Yeah.
what? The invisible friend don't care. They're still like, yeah,
Mhm.
F
A
that. I'm
and
like,
you get to
yeah.
look at it, like, and the cool thing is when you're doing that and you go back a year or 2 later, after you've done a lot of healing and a lot of growing
You're
up,
like, holy crap, I was mad.
it's just the cutest shit, because 'cause you're
Like,
like, "Whoa, the things that you think about are
ah,
so impactful
right,
really aren't." It was
right.
nothing, it was just a learning lesson, it was a
Or it
stepping
was
stone.
sort of like, here's what people would do in the Al Anon program. They would take their journals, and at a certain point, they would reread them and kind of say, "This is no longer me," and I
Yeah.
see that. And they would make a ceremony of it, and they would
Mhm.
take their journals and they'd build a fire, or they'd take a balloon and write a little
Mhm.
message on the end. They release the or they burn all their journals.
Mhm.
There is no right way to release the old you.
There's not any wrong way.
However, the old you will definitely be released.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it's one of the quickest, fastest modalities to get to the end of that shadow work.
It is, it
Like
is.
nobody's going to do it for you. That's the other thing. Nobody's going to do it for you. The only person that can save you is you.
And what is that? Well, you and I have said this quite a bit of times to each other. It's like, you're not going to get there. Not everybody's going to hit that point. They're
No,
not meant to. They're not meant
no,
to this time. And you know what? They're going to have to do it again.
yeah,
But the fact that you're going through this, or even on that point, you really have to be. It's like with any addiction, any traumas, anything that you've dealt with and had to overcome. uh,
right,
Especially when you realize you are the common denominator in all of
yeah,
it, is you have to be tired enough of your own shit
yeah,
repeating over and over and over again to actually
yeah,
make that change.
yeah,
We always say, if you don't make the change, I mean, you're going to just the universe will keep
yeah.
ripping rugs out from underneath you,
It'll
because
change when
you
you start changing it. Otherwise, it'll just keep repeating.
yeah, exactly. and
But
and
again, the only person that could make any changes to your life is you. That's
right,
it.
right.
So it won't change unless you start doing something different. If you
Yeah,
always go to the railroad tracks and you always swing a right, at some point she's right. You're going to want to swing a left. And it's not so much about, look, I'm just going to say this out loud and people can get mad if they want to. Every human being on the earth has been affected by alcohol, period.
hmm,
Because if your parents weren't drinkers, it don't matter. They were children of alcoholics.
yep.
They were grandchildren of alcoholics. They were grandchildren of addicts.
Hmm.
Opium has been around, you know.
Hmm.
there's always been an addiction factor somewhere, whether it's an addiction to work or food or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Complexes and imprinting is passed on very, very easily, especially if you're living with a bunch of people in the same place. So yes, people manipulate to get things.
Yeah.
Period. How else are we going to eat? And I'm going to come and trade you 2 of my socks for a bowl of soup. It's a manipulative factor. And guess
Right.
what? I got fed, you got socks, everybody's happy in the deal. There's
Right.
always going to be a complex, but you're not the only one that has that complex. Everybody in the house has the same complex because that's what they're putting in front of their face. And now you're engaging with it. Except at some point, she's right. You get so sick and tired of the way things are that you step back. That's probably one of the biggest parts, is that you finally shut up and you step back and look at the whole thing and you're like, we're all liars.
Yeah.
We're all thieves.
Yeah.
We're all manipulators.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it. They've done it. We're all doing it. But I don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
Here's the thing they don't tell you, though, is once you go in and you identify the thing, you journal it all out and you purge your system and puke it out with a friend or with a counselor or whoever you do this with, just know that you have changed at a cellular level.
Cellular.
Which means you're going to lose people around you.
You're going to lose people. And that is so hard.
It's going to,
family.
You're going to feel like you're in the middle between what the old ignorant you, like, I wish I could go back to the way things were, but you can't because the truth is now in your head.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I could be forward a couple years because then I'd be out of this.
Yeah.
But again, you're not there yet. This is where you're at today, and you feel like you're in between 2 worlds and you're being pulled like this.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up losing people because they don't know the truth. They don't see the truth. They're not proactive with their health like you're doing. They're still in the system that repeats.
They think you're crazy.
They think you're crazy. They start calling you names. They want to put you in an insane asylum. They're going to Baker Act you. What do you do?
Gaslighting. Yeah.
All of a sudden, everybody's a narcissist. And no. I say don't call everybody a narcissist.
No.
I say stand still and say, why did I choose the narcissist? Because it's about you.
Yeah.
It's all about you. Shadow work is not about anybody else but you.
It's not. It is not. And I'm glad you brought that up, Miriam. That's so important because it's true. You don't, and it's not just the people, and it's usually the closest people to you. They're like, "Who are you? I don't even know who you are anymore." And you're like, "Well, it's because I'm changing. I'm not the old me anymore."
They'll ask for the old you.
And I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, but that stuff I see that it was just a cycle of the same shit over again, and I just can't participate. I'm moving.
They'll start calling you weird, like Miriam's acting weird.
Yeah. They'll have an intervention on you.
Yeah, they'll sit down and be like, "We need to talk with you about this."
Yeah, but it's all, and I forgive all that stuff, and I just, it's one of those things that you have to learn to be comfortable being alone.
That was the other thing. Some of these family members and friends, they need you to be sick. They need you to stay in the sickness. And so a lot of the attachments that they will try to put on you during your shadow work is not true. It's, just because someone says something doesn't make it true, period. I had a therapist years ago tell me that, saved my life.
Oh, yeah.
Just because someone says something about you doesn't make it true. And when you start to heal and come out of your shadow work, some people need you to stay sick because it keeps their narrative going.
Yeah.
But you're not feeding into sickness anymore. You've chosen health. So what do? You're stuck in the middle. This is why, and I think you'll agree with me, Heather. Anybody that's been awakened will agree. There is about a year. It takes about a year where all the old people shed out and you're standing there in isolation and you feel very alone by yourself for like a year
I'm gonna
and it's
say,
quiet.
yeah, I'm gonna say probably about 2.5 in some cases if you're like got a lot of earth sign, you got a lot of earth in your chart,
Yeah.
takes you longer.
For me,
Um,
it was a year of silence.
yeah,
I was
being
all
alone.
alone before the new people started showing up,
Hmm.
but they will show up.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
they
just
will.
people are made out of flesh, and flesh is an earth energy, and it
If you
takes
want
a
to
lot of
talk
time.
to in the one last tidbit, I know that we are really running long here today, but the last tidbit I have is like the retraining of the algorithms that you're paying attention to. Okay, because
Mm,
with AI and all that, it's really going to keep feeding whatever narrative that you've been subscribed to for a while. Well, if you're on a healing journey and you're trying to do your best to surround yourself around positivity, weed out negative friends, family, or whatever on social media, unfollow, hide for 30, snooze for 30 days,
yeah,
start like for me, like I built up when I started my Instagram account, I started only following positive spirituality,
right,
astrology, tarot, that way that it would sink in and that was just not people. It was
right,
not, and it's cool to stay connected with friends and family. Another thing you can do, which I did, is completely detach from social media
right,
altogether. And I did that for a good year, year and a half. Totally. I was
right,
off. And that helped that healing go so much faster. And
right.
I did a lot of
It
reading and
does. It
studying,
does. I
you
sat
know.
with a family and they were in their crash moment. And they said, they called me up and they said, we've heard of your story. Can you please come be with us and help our family? And I went up there to Hill Country around Waco for almost a year. And when I showed up, they were like, tell us what to do and we'll do it. And I said, put a perimeter around your family right now,
Yeah.
full perimeter, shut everybody out, grandma, aunts, cousins, shut everybody out, turn the phones off, turn the TVs off, turn it all off. We'll just hang out on the porch together and
Yeah.
return to as simple as life as you can.
Yep.
During mine, I was homeless, so I couldn't afford a phone. So guess what? I didn't have.
Yeah.
So I didn't have none of it. I had my fishing pole and I had the woods.
Hmm.
And it's returning to a state of simplicity, as simple as you can get it,
Hmm.
with no interruptions, because it's almost like the seed has to rest in the soil
Hmm.
and just let it sit.
Pay attention to those metaphors too, because the guides, my guides were really vocal about the metaphors. And I've never been a highly philosophical person or into
Right,
metaphors, but like I remember they started flashing me like tarot cards. When I'd see somebody and interact with them and how they were acting, they would show me the, Queen of Wands or the
right,
little Page of Cups reverse. Like they would show me those, or
right.
even just the metaphor of like sitting outside and if it's nice time of year or whatever, you're sitting outside,
Mm-hmm.
everything's green, you're just sitting in your own relaxed zen
Right,
zone. Everybody meditates in their own way. So I'm taking myself back to what I did.
right.
I went and sat in my lawn chair in my backyard and by my mimosa tree. And then I'm sitting meditating on it. And then next thing I know, I'm seeing all of the life breathing through the tree and
Yes,
seeing it go. And then you're seeing the earth and Mother Earth, and you start to get all these correlations. You're like, because me, I'm always been really, like I said, I've always been kind of I get along with everybody, but yeah, I could be kind of a little bit of an asshole. I'm just gonna say it, and I'd be like, that's fem, that's girly. I'm not. And
right.
so when all that divine feminine started waking up in me, I was like, whoa, wow. And then the metaphors, and then
Right,
getting into mythology, and I started studying all the asteroids.
right.
It's so much new stuff started
You know,
coming in, and you
it
just go with
destroyed
it.
my dating life. I was single at the time. It
Oh gosh.
completely destroyed my dating
I
life.
can only imagine.
It surely did, because I was like trying to return to the old me. and
You
do
can't do
something
it.
the old me would do.
Uh-uh.
And this one guy took me out to the movies. And after the movie, he was like, "Did you like the movie?" And I was like, "No,"
Hmm.
because I chose not to lie anymore.
Yeah.
No. And he
No.
was like, "Did you have a good time at least?" I was like, "No."
No.
No, I think we're good here, dude. You know,
Yeah. Deuces.
and he went his way. And I was in the car going back to my little FEMA trailer thinking, oh man, that sucks. I so, like I'm going to be so honest to the point of pain now. I'm not
Right.
going to lie about anything from here
Yeah.
forward. And I made a vow and I've kept it. But
Yeah.
man, I couldn't date
That's
people because of it.
that's
Like,
awesome.
you
That's
like
awesome.
me? No. No, I
Yeah.
do not.
That's one of the other things that people struggle with because, like especially, and I'm sure with you because you're a Libra, you probably had a lot of people pleasing things happening,
Right.
and
Especially with
me.
the people pleasing things, because
Right,
you
right,
lie
right,
constantly.
right.
Oh
You
yeah, I
do.
love
And
that
and
shirt.
and when you become no longer a people pleaser and say, "No, I'm
Right,
just not going to participate. I've been there, done that 50 fucking times. Why do I want to do it again?"
right.
You're the asshole, but hey, it's all for a good cause.
Right, right. Yeah, it's
I need
almost
a
like you have to
t-shirt,
relearn
asshole for a
social
good
skills.
cause.
I think that's what that year is for. It's like at first you're just very harsh with everyone because you're so truthful.
It's the
And then over
boundaries.
time you
Yep.
realize, oh, okay, I can say this in a different way and still mean the truth. But yeah. Anyway, this has been
T-shirt.
glorious.
It has. I want a t-shirt, Miriam. Make
Yeah.
me a t-shirt. Asshole for a good cause. No, I'm just
Asshole
kidding.
for a good cause. We'll
Just
be
kidding.
back next time.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
We
Well,
hope you
yeah.
enjoyed this. I randomly started recording because Heather and
Totally
I, we are
improv.
always doing this sort of exchange, and we felt that, well, I felt that it'd be good for y'all to get in on it while we were here. Um,
Sunday morning.
it's always a
Good time.
magical moment.
Yeah, it is.
We hope you come back.
Yeah. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank
Love you,
you for
Em.
coming by. We love
Bye, guys.
you.